back so promptly. The next item is the notice of motion for the two-child benefit cap. So can I call on, who's getting on this? Sorry. Sorry, it's Peter Black. Sorry, Peter.
Thank you.
I got too many papers up here.
Thank you, Chair. Can I move this motion? I think the motion sets out the situation quite clearly that there are 1.5 million children in the UK living in households subject to the two-child limit on benefit payments. And when that limit was brought in, obviously for reasons of budget more than anything else, I think the government felt that they're in the middle of what's known as a levelling up agenda. But of course, the reality of this two-child benefit cap is it actually increased the regional disparity in poverty between the poorer areas and the richer areas. So those families who have more than 2 children are now much worse off. They are further into poverty as a result of this, and often especially over £3,000 per child each year worse off. Scrapping the two-child limit would lift 250,000 children out of poverty overnight. It would significantly reduce the level of poverty that a further 850,000 children live in. And in Swansea, particularly, we're talking just under 5,000 children in about 1,400 households who are affected by this limit on benefit payments. That's 10% of all children in our area. This council has always been committed to tackling child poverty. It's been committed to lifting people up and getting them into work and helping them to survive. And this is undermining the work that this council and others have been doing to deal with the poverty which many children are living in. There are 12,794 local children living in poverty, and we don't change this two-child benefit cap, we don't get rid of it, then that will continue for some time to go. So I think it's important that irrespective of the financial position of the government, we've already discussed what ways that they could deal with this £22 billion deficit which they've inherited. Irrespective of that limit, given the fact that there are different ways to do this, and given that scrapping the two-child limit would cost £3.4 billion, which is fairly insignificant in UK government expenditure terms. I think it's important that now we have a new government, we have a fresh start, and that we finally scrap this limit, so we can get on with dealing with the real issues of poverty and deprivation in our society, helping people to survive while trying to find them jobs and work and getting and improving the prosperity of our area. So I hope we can support this motion as it is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Pritchard. Bennett, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to second the motion. In Waterfront, we have a Gleddy community fridge. On numerous occasions in the summer, during my lunch break, I've taken a lunchtime walk through the marina. And on Sundays, you'll see a queue going around the corner from the community fridge of parents with children in hand, waiting at the queue to have cheap food provided to them that has been donated by businesses across Swansea. Those people in the queue are likely some of the 5,000 children of Swansea affected by the two-child benefit cap. Families that expected a political party whose electoral slogan was change to do exactly that. And more so expected a party that went into that election saying they would eradicate poverty to do something about that. The Labour Chancellor that we've currently got is playing the Osborne playbook very, very well. But I don't just want to give my opinion on this. I thought I'd share some others' opinions as well. In The Observer, on Saturday, 27th of April of this year, there was an article with the title, "It's immoral to push children into poverty, but that's what this benefit cap does." I agree. Do the members opposite? Claimants were supposed to be, it goes on to say, claimants were supposed to be deterred from having children, but the policy has made families poorer, not smaller. I agree with that. Do the members opposite? This article that is extremely informative, outlining that half of children in families with three or more children are now in poverty. The author of this article puts it very neatly. There is much talk of fiscal pinch points, as we've spoken about tonight. There is much talk of fiscal pinch points driving economic policy decisions, but there are moral pinch points too. I agree with that point. Do the members opposite? Quite often I have conversations about politics with my partner, who's not remotely at all interested in politics. But he remembers when he was growing up, standing in queues with his parents, much like the people I was talking about at Gledy, queuing for beef and butter for benefits claimants, and that was in Llanelli, not a million miles away from here. So when there is a Labour government in power with a stated aim of wanting to reduce child poverty, and they're presented with a simple policy choice to do so, the Labour government have decided not to listen, to make the choice of no change, to not lift the 250,000 children out of child poverty. And just to finish off, the author of that article that I quoted was Torsten Bell MP, the new Labour MP for Swansea West, who many in this room has helped get elected. In the article, he was right, but a few weeks later, he changed his mind and voted to keep the child benefit cap. The Lib Dems voted to get rid of it. Do the members opposite agree with me and that he was right the first time and wrong the second?
Oh, sorry, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. Obviously, the motion's been moved and seconded, so now I move the amendment. Members have had a copy of that. Listening to the comments from both the mover and seconder, there's a lot to agree with in that, in terms of the challenge faced by this UK government in terms of undoing the damage that 13 years of UK government by the Tories have foisted upon this country. If they were making these comments in 4.5 years' time, I could understand some frustration from them. But they're making these comments after a few weeks of the Labour government. It does seem a bit like cheap politicking, because these things can only be achieved once the foundations have been laid. We've just had a debate about the dangers of trying to do things when you don't have the money or don't have the plans or haven't been able to identify how you're going to fund these. And whilst Councillor Black does say it's 3 billion pounds or so a year, which is manageable for a national government, is of course a recurring cost which the government has to plan for. So it isn't just £3 million, it's a lot more than that. And of course, this is amongst lots of things that the Labour government will need to consider whether it acts on. We've got the bedroom tax, another great invention by the government. The decision on student loans made by the coalition government. The decisions to change the way in which benefits are allocated. All of these big systematic and economic changes will need to be considered. This is an important one. And again, hopefully during the 5 years of this Labour government, it will come up for discussion. But just to say, you accuse Rachel Reeves, the new Chancellor, of taking on the Osborne approach. I do not see it that way. I mean, again, Osborne was your Chancellor for the coalition government. What Rachel Reeves is doing is, I would say, more akin to what Gordon Brown and Tony Blair did, because they took a measured approach in the first year or so of the Labour government elected in 1997 in order for them to do greater things in the following years. And what were those greater things? Here's a taster for you. The longest period of sustained low inflation since the 1960s, lowering mortgage rates to near historic lows, introducing the national minimum wage, putting over 14,000 more police on the beat in England and Wales, cutting crime by 32%, raising numeracy and literacy to record levels, funding every pupil in England, funding for pupils in England doubled during that time, and obviously there was a consequence to Wales. Employment at its highest ever level. There were 85,000 more nurses able to be funded to work in our health services, 32,000 more doctors funded to work in our health services. They brought back matrons onto wards, devolved powers to both Scottish and Welsh governments. Those are the sorts of things that you can do when you get the basics right. What you don't do is to make decisions that you would like to make in a reckless way, having been only in power for a few days. And I think that is the difference between what you are claiming and what the reality is. We have put an amendment forward which supports the aim of getting rid of this cap at some point, but it has to be when the finances allow and when you are able to fund the things you want to do. Because if you don't, you end up in the Liz Truss situation, where your government falls apart, your economy crashes, and your citizens pay the price. That is not what we want. So let's make this country better, but let's do it in a way that is sustainable for the long term.
Thank you, Leader. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Okay, are there any other amendments? No? Okay, so this amendment is carried and the amended motion takes the place of the original motion. Yeah?
No.
No, I'm reading it wrong again, am I? Sorry. Just,
So there's the discussion. Yeah. Discussion on it and then.
oh, sorry. Right, it's open for discussion, sorry. Just Saka. Les?
I feel slightly insulted by the person over there who seconded this motion and was trying to make out that all us lot are the villains of the piece. Let's point out who introduced this. The Tories. 9 years ago, and they haven't managed to reverse it yet. And yet you sit there and accuse us, the Labour government, of not doing it in 2 months. I think it's abysmal. It's pathetic, petty, politicking at its worst. And I think you should be ashamed of yourselves.
When he was saying you, across there, he was talking about the MPs and the Labour MPs talking about the Conservatives. I think you misunderstood what was being said.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McEtrick.
Yeah, it's only a quick point. Like, as you said, you've only had 2 months. It is a little bit about priorities. This has obviously been a lower priority than some other issues. That's life. You have to make your decisions. Personally, I might have prioritised differently. So, you know, it is okay to have these discussions and hold the new government to account. That's the joy of being in power. You can make a difference. We don't have that option. All we can do is say what we think is good and what is right. And ultimately, you could have changed this. Your government could have changed this. There may be very good reasons why it hasn't. They have chosen to spend money on other things, some of which I would agree with are very worthy. So it's important to realise that when you look at this motion, you know, it is fair to criticise people for the decisions they've made. And I accept the storm that has been thrown at the Labour government. It is not an easy place. But it is not fair to say that I personally think that children going hungry is extremely immoral. I would have prioritised that ahead of pay rises, for instance. That's not to say that the pay rises are immoral. It's just that kids going hungry, I think personally, is a more important issue. That's what we're saying here. That's the decision we have to make. And I appreciate all the difficulties that are happening. But as Peter Black has pointed out, there are ways of raising that money that are not going to bankrupt the country instantly. So that's why the motion is as it is. Thank you.
Alison?
Come on, oh, maybe it's on now. I think in support of the amended motion, we all know the figures. We know we would immediately lift 250,000 children out of poverty. You know, the thinking behind this when it came in, I suppose, was trying to control how many children people can have, but research shows that hasn't worked at all. You know, therefore, this cruelty does need to stop. We know that. We know life is tough out there. And here in the local authority, we're seeing firsthand that people are struggling, and we are trying our best to help plug the gaps. We've desperately trying to get money out via grants. We've over 700,000 this summer alone, and that is without the free buses and all the other things that we're trying to do. You know, we don't know what position we'll be in going forward, and how long grants will come, you know, we'll keep going for, and we are intervening as they fall by the way, and we are picking up the pieces. We know it's early days for the government. It is, of course, a matter of days, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But I don't think any of us disagree with, we would like to see this altered. Do you know what I mean? We all, out of everything in the world, we all want children not to be hungry, not to suffer. Do you know what I mean? And we are desperately trying to make sure that doesn't happen here in Swansea. But we do have to be fair. We can't solve everything in a couple of weeks. But I certainly would like to see this at the top of the agenda now going forward, and that the leader writes and puts pressure on, and that we turn this around as soon as we can. Thanks.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Oh, put your light off, Al. Okay. And now I'm going to go to a vote. No, sorry, I need to come back to you first. I'll get it right in a minute.
Very quickly, Chair. Look, I understand the points. I think everybody is demonstrating who's spoken that we all understand the challenges here and the difference that a change in this area of the benefit system can make to people's lives. As I said in the earlier leaders' announcements, I'm very proud, and we should all be very proud of the work that's going on in Swansea to support people who are finding the cost of living crisis difficult and who need our support. It is just disappointing that that is having to be done because we've had a government that hasn't cared for 13 years about people sufficiently to make the change. And it's telling. I have to say, I'm really disappointed that on an important topic like this, not one of the Conservative group have chosen to make a comment, which is in itself quite telling. I would have thought that even if they disagreed with the motion, they would have said something, but to stay silent is quite telling. Anyway, I'm grateful for the support for the motion. I do hope that as the Labour government is able to get a grip on the UK's finances and to stabilise our economy, there will be headroom for them to consider changes like this, because I'm sure we'd all like to see lots of help going to the people who most need it so that they don't suffer poverty, and that we can do, as the Labour government did in 1997, bring thousands and thousands of children out of poverty for good.
Okay, now.
Yeah, thank you. Just summing up, Chair, if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's been 2 months, and yes, you haven't had 2 months is not a lot of time. But what's happened in those 2 months? You've effectively taken the winter fuel allowance off pensioners, and you've.
Chair, can I just say I've summed up. There is
No, I'm
That's what I thought.
motion. You summed up the amendment.
No, it's got,
No,
you've got to vote on the amendment
this is
first,
the
Peter.
amendment.
Sorry.
Apologies.
Sorry.
No,
No, there's
no.
there's an amendment. You
Wait,
vote
wait,
on the
wait,
amendment,
wait.
and if the amendment stands, then it's carried. Yeah, am I right?
That is correct, Chair. And I feel I was a bit harsh on the Conservative members looking back. The Uplands Party.
Can we have one voice, because I can't hear what the leader's
Shall I
saying.
get to sum up on the motion before you have the amendment? You vote on the amendment. That's the proper procedure.
So sorry, can I just explain? You've moved and seconded your motion.
Yeah.
I now move the amendment.
Yeah.
We then debate the amendment, and I sum up on the amendment.
And then I sum up on the motion.
No,
No. We vote on the amendment. If the amendment is lost, we then return to the substantive motion. At that point, you would have the opportunity to sum up, which is why the Conservative members, when they moved their motion, didn't have the opportunity to sum up after I'd summed up. That is the rules of debate.
that's what happened in the last one, Peter. We summed up on the amendment.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said then.
I said this is what happened in the previous motion.
Yeah,
We summed up on the
should have the
amendment.
right to, I should have the right to sum up on my motion.
Not.
I might help, Chairman.
It's her
Once
advice,
the motion
or Deb.
becomes substantive, then the motion moved by Councillor Black is the motion before the council, and that is the motion he gets to sum up on.
Deb will explain if you let her. Minute,
the procedure rules clearly say there's a substantive motion which has been moved and seconded, but there is an amendment. So the amendment gets moved, seconded, debated. If the amendment fails, we go back to the substantive motion and have a debate on that. If the amendment is carried, that becomes a substantive motion, and that then can be subject to further amendments, and they get debated and so on. So we now need, after the summing up, we now need to vote on the amendment to see whether that is carried or whether that fails.
Okay. So now I'm going to move to the vote, please. So all in favour of the amendment? Against? Any abstentions? Are there any more amendments now? No? So that just stands now, yes?
You have to read it.
So I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the amendment out, okay?
Can I speak on the new the amendment now? On the new motion?
Pardon?
Can I speak on the motion now?
Can you make an amendment to the motion?
Yeah, speak on the motion.
Yes.
Sorry, Hugh.
So now, you've all approved the Labour amendment to become the substantive motion. Debate, everything can happen at this stage. We don't need to go straight to a vote on this. This is open dialogue on the new substantive motions. Yes, of course, you can speak subject to the chair, obviously.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make the point that we have had 2 months since the Labour Party came to power. They came into power effectively promising change. They came into power as a party which is meant to be championing the tackling poverty, meant to be standing up for the disadvantaged. And in that 2 months, what they've done, they've taken money off the pensioners through the winter fuel allowance, and they've effectively kicked this two-child benefit cap reform into the long grass, saying there has to be a review before they can look at it. And we haven't even yet had a budget by which they can make those judgments against. There are ways that they can do this particular. They can reform this cap. I would have thought this should have been one of their highest priorities, irrespective of how long they've had in power. They've had time to do other things. They should have had time to do this. Thank you, Chair.
So have you just moved an amendment, Peter? No.
So
He's speaking on it. Read out the amendment, yes? No? I'm totally confused.
Chair, you do
Yeah.
have to read
So I'm going to read this out here, haven't I? Yes. It's up to you. You can do it. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, again, I appreciate its owners and you have it in front of me, but the Constitution does ask for it. So unless you suspend standing orders, I do need to read it. Council notes the recent research conducted by the End Child Poverty Coalition, which has found that 1.5 million children in the UK live in households subject to the two-child limit on benefit payments. That is roughly 1 in 10 children in the UK. In 2023/24, the two-child limit cost families up to £3,235 per child each year. There is a strong correlation between families affected by the two-child limit and those who are living in poverty. Scrapping the two-child limit would lift 250,000 children out of poverty overnight and significantly reduce the level of poverty that a further 850,000 children live in. Scrapping the two-child limit would cost £3.4 billion. However, it is estimated that child poverty costs the economy £39 billion each year. In Swansea, 4,866 children in 1,390 households are currently affected by the two-child limit to benefit payments. That is 10% of all children in the authority area. At the same time, 12,794 local children are living in poverty. Council strongly believes that the two-child limit to benefit payments is a policy introduced by the previous UK government that should be scrapped as soon as the public finances can accommodate this change. We note the challenging financial position faced by the new government, including the significant £22 billion black hole left by the previous government. Research from the University of York has shown its introduction has no positive impact on employment and earnings. Instead, it has dragged thousands of local families into poverty. Council notes that members of all main opposition parties opposed the two-child limit to benefit payments when it was introduced. Council resolves to 1. Instruct the leader to write to the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Prime Minister indicating the Council's strong belief that the two-child limit to benefit payments should be scrapped as soon as public finances permit, which would help 4,866 children living in Swansea. 2, instructs the leader to write to all MPs covering Swansea area, asking them to commit their public support the scrapping of the 2-child limit as soon as public finances permit. Thank you.
Now we need to go to a vote, yeah? Okay? Okay, so all in favour of the, it's a substantive motion now. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, so the substantive motion is carried. Thank you very much. Sorry about folks for all the confusion. Okay. Okay. It's the end of the meeting. Thank you. Okay. Oh my God.